It's so sad. She was great, just, great. Makes me sad. I have another teacher died last week. Where do we finish in here?
Basics.
Okay, we're gonna go through a couple things. A couple things we review. But remember, Kennedy felt weak after the Bay of Pigs. All right. So we got Dien Bien Phu, Geneva. What was the name? The National Liberation Front, but what did Zim call them? David, turn around. Always looking at you. Are you gonna blame somebody else? You're ready for politics. Okay, so. Zim, what was the name that they gave the National Liberation Front? Yeah, the Viet Cong. And who really led the Viet Cong, even though it was mostly made of Southerners?
Yeah.
Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh, but according to the Truman Doctrine, who led it all? Moscow through China. So, did I get the Zim being killed? We just got Bay of Pigs. All right. So, Bay of Pigs happened. Oh, I see what happened. We got the wise men, right?
Yeah.
Laos. This is how I'm gonna go really fast. So Kennedy, after the Bay of Pigs, is gonna make South Vietnam even more important because he looks soft. He looks soft, and Castro not only became closer to the Soviet Union after that, Castro kind of taunted him. So he became, even had to act tougher. Heck, Khrushchev and Kennedy actually had a meeting in Vienna right after the Bay of Pigs, and Khrushchev just berated him. He thought Kennedy was young, kind of a lightweight, and Kennedy tried to act tough. And they left that conference, which was going to start arms control talks, both kind of talking about war. I mean, this is one of the closest we've ever came to war. So they mentioned the Cuban Missile Crisis in the video Fog of War. They didn't tell you how close it really was. It was pretty scary. Kennedy had a very broad political program. He was a liberal Democrat. He very much wanted to get, at least partially finish what Franklin Roosevelt did in the New Deal. That's what he wanted. He was a liberal Democrat, much more liberal Democrat than any Democratic president, and certainly any Republican president in your lifetime. So, it was a different world then. It's economically more conservative. Well, out of that, Berlin put up the Berlin Wall to keep people from fleeing over to the West. 2 different times, there would be almost nuclear war there. That's an East German guard making a break for it. They're about ready to fight for this fight in Berlin. So Berlin was occupied after Germany was occupied after World War II. They split it up into occupation zones. The 3 Western Allies on the west, West Berlin, and the Soviets in the east. They're Berlin. And you have this island in the middle of East Germany, which was the old Soviet occupation zone. And now there's a wall separating them. And even though this is a real sign of the weakness of the Soviet Union, to many people, isn't that wall like you're going to surround them and then just swallow it up? So any thought they're going to have about potential war with the Soviet Union, in the back of their mind was, West Berlin will be taken easily. Easily. And then who knows what else the war will be. So they talk about West Berlin. If we allow West Berlin to be taken by the Soviets, even though they had no plan on doing it, we allow that and we promise we would defend West Berlin, would anybody ever believe us again? Do you get what I'm getting at there? That's really important. Now, was that the reality of the world? Not really. That's one of the other reasons I like showing the Fog of War. Remember when McNamara said seeing and believing something is not necessarily true? You might believe it, but it doesn't mean that's the reality. So, Kennedy's approval rating was actually really low. You could see here where Kennedy was personal approval rating here, but the civil rights movement was 57%. And actually his lowest was approval rating of about 47%, which was considered really low. I'll have to get the civil rights in 1 second. Now, today, there's, it's so rare to have a president above 50%, let alone 40% approval rating. Trump is very low approval ratings right now. The lowest in history has been President Trump. Now, Trump has a great advantage. Those who like him really like him. So that gives you kind of a little cushion. So that's one of the standoffs in Berlin. Those are US tanks and those are Soviet tanks. The place is called Checkpoint Charlie. The US code named it that. One of the ways to get back and forth. That sign's still there, that checkpoint's still there. You can get your picture taken with some Berliner in a US Army uniform. It's kind of weird. You pay for it. But if you ever get a chance to go to Berlin, right here, there's this big building there. Now it's a great museum called the Checkpoint Charlie Museum. If you get a chance, hitting Berlin, go to the Checkpoint Charlie Museum. All right, so back to this. Kennedy even went there and made his famous speech where he said, "We will defend West Berlin just like it's part of the United States." And I showed this to, obviously I showed this thing to my class. He said, "Ich bin ein Berliner," meaning I am a citizen of Berlin. And this is his phonetic notes. It said, "Ich bin ein Berliner." So he could say it kind of close to German. But what else is a Berliner? It's also a jelly donut. So immediately people started saying that Kennedy screwed up and said he wasn't a citizen of Berlin, but a jelly donut. No, everyone knew. But I will show you this. If you're in my class last year, I showed it, but I like. Okay, I literally just looked at this. Oh no, it's gone. All right, everyone stop. No one leaves till we find it. Oh no. Einen Ich bin ein Berliner with a jelly donut. And I can't find it. Oh. That was close, people. I bought this in Berlin. Huh? No, it's just a sticker. And it cost €150. I had to buy it. All right. Berlin, that's everyone's talking about. Kennedy needs to look tough. And they begin an effort to assassinate Castro, called Operation Mongoose. So no, we didn't pick assassinations this year, or this semester. If you're gonna be here the second semester, we can do assassinations. Operation Mongoose is an incredible plan about all the different ways, everything from exploding cigars to LSD efforts to try to kill Castro. It's a great story. But Castro knew they're trying to kill him, and they already made it once. So he's freaking out. And that would directly lead to, think about, we're planning on killing people. And there were rumors about it. We didn't know about Castro, the general public, until 1976. But people whispered, like, we have evidence, but we know it. And you know what conspiracy theories are? Most of them aren't true, but occasionally. And then everyone's looking for deterrence. A way to avoid or keep your enemy from attacking. Castro doesn't want the United States to attack. The United States has more nuclear missiles and bombers than anybody else. The Soviets don't want the US attack, and the US doesn't want them to attack. This is one of my favorite, because everyone has bombs. The next war will be on bow and arrows, because everyone's afraid to blow the world up. That's the Cuban Missile Crisis they mentioned in the video. I'm not going to go into details of the Cuban Missile Crisis. But here we are. We want to deter Soviet attack. We want to defend Berlin. We want to look tough on communism. And then we nearly blew the world up with the Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, McNamara did a good job talking about that, but they didn't tell every detail. The United States was going to attack. Oh, this is the date it was announced to the public. That was the date it was announced. It went on to the 20th. But Eisenhower, the the United States decided that they were going to attack at noon on the 28th. And they didn't get word from the Soviets that they would pull the missiles out until 11 o'clock Washington DC. If the US would have attacked, they had bombs, nuclear bombs. How fast would that have escalated to World War III? Can't even imagine. Yeah, it's amazing. But think about this for a second. We just fought this huge war with China. We have this Cold War. We got to look tough on communism. But at the same time, we nearly blew the world up and it happened again. We don't want that to happen. And Berlin is surrounded. We promise we'll defend it. All these things in the back of their mind. So what do? Oh, then civil rights. Kennedy's program was called the New Frontier. And civil rights seemed to be a symbol of the failure of Kennedy's New Deal-like program. He promised to do everything from raise the minimum wage, revise the tax code, create more jobs, but the biggie was civil rights. To end, does anybody remember the name of the segregation laws in the South? Jim Crow laws, but also voting rights. And he promised. And what happened? None of them passed. In fact, the only major Kennedy initiative that passed was a massive increase in defense spending. That's the only thing that got passed. All his kind of New Deal-like programs that he sought to make society better all failed. And these are examples of freedom riders who try to get registration to vote and end segregated busing, sit-ins in segregated restaurants, and that's the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in 1963 to try to push Kennedy to push for the law. Kennedy couldn't get it done. They were stuck in Congress even though the Democrats had a huge majority. But Southern Democrats, because there was only the Democratic Party in the South back then, were all segregationists. So he looks like a failure. 63, nothing's passing. And civil rights, the protest for him, he was being blamed. And the overwhelming majority of white people were opposed to civil rights. The approval rating of Martin Luther King, who was just becoming nationally known, was incredibly high, the disapproval rate. The March on Washington. But back to this. So, South Vietnam, that could be his victory. He could say Zem's government and the United States are winning the war. We're winning. And so we go into the election in 64, we're winning there. That is why when McNamara and others say that Kennedy might have pulled out of the war, maybe, we don't know. He died. There's no evidence. Because if we would have pulled out and they lost, he would have taken a political hit, and he already showed he was unwilling to take a political hit. By 64, there are 18,000 advisors. And these are South Vietnamese soldiers, and these are suspected Viet Cong guerrillas being taken back to be interrogated. I can't even begin to tell you the tortures. And there's them. So he made it big. Why? Well, let's go. Let's get to the reality. They weren't winning. The VC basically controlled the countryside. Much like the French, Ivory Road would be ambushed at. And there were terrorist attacks all over major cities. That is a restaurant, hotel restaurant in downtown Saigon, the capital, where American advisors and American officials would hang out in the evening. And so it was a terrorist attack. Constantly to make people believe the government can't protect the people, to undermine it. So terrorists weren't winning. And he's stuck though. These are the reasons why he committed. We know the domino theory, right? We've talked about Berlin. Civil rights. People were demanding equal rights. He couldn't deliver. He needed a distraction and thought he could never get a pass unless we get in South Vietnam. And he wants to win in 64. He doesn't want Vietnam thrown in his face all the time. Which is always fascinating because most Americans couldn't have found Vietnam on a map. You guys can now, right? It does help to know where you're. It really helps. You hear something and you know where it's at, you can maybe start thinking about what you're, okay, what's going on? If you don't know where something's at, what's your first thought? Where is it? And then you've just missed it. So, Zim was riddled with corruption. There were elections, but no opposing parties. Democracy, right? We claim it's democracy, but it's a one-party democracy. What's nepotism? Say it again. Yeah, so basically giving your friend, your kids or your friends' kids better jobs, better connections, better contracts. Is that what you're gonna? That's nepotism. And nepotism happens all the time, but it was just late. And especially when they were a different religion. And US was pumping aid into South Vietnam. What was happening to the aid? What was Sam doing with the aid? He was walking on. Because of smart business practices. Yeah, he's just pocketing. Gee, I wonder what's gonna happen in Iraq and Afghanistan in your lifetime. This is me doing a pondering. When the US pulled out in the Afghan government that we spent billions on, we expect to hold for at least a year, collapse in about two minutes. The president of Afghanistan was carrying out pallets of $100 bills, shrink wrapped, on big pallets, tall as me, full of $100 bills, shrimp wrapped in a pallet of US government aid just pocketed. They loaded up on his personal transport and flew out. That's Afghanistan. This was even worse. Yeah, that's one of those things, the whole thing was doomed. And it makes me so sad because so many people are going to die. And there are mass protests all over South Vietnam against the Zim government. And what did the US do? Aren't we kind of stuck with Zim? If we overthrow him, then what? How can we say we're going to give Zim millions and billions of dollars and then the next day say, kidding. Do you see the problem? And that's where we get, what did I show you the picture of? Remember? That's the protest against Zim. That's 63, 62, 63. That color one is, wow. Moving on. We're going to jump right here. So let's go watch a video clip of how this happened. All right. Now think about one basic fact. Oh my gosh, I lied through my teeth. You like it now? See, you weren't here last year, but you know you like it, don't you? All right. So a bunch of generals, led by General Big Min, decided to overthrow Zim. They mentioned this in the video. And they basically went to the CIA. And they went to the CIA and said, if we get rid of Zim, that gets rid of the corruption. That gets rid of the taint of, I know this sounds weird, but Catholicism gets connection to the French. And therefore we can have a real government. Let us do it. And Kennedy administration went all the way up to they reluctantly agreed. Reluctantly. They're a little bit worried. Well, they should have been. The idea was so dumb. Looking back at it, hindsight's a beautiful thing. But yeah, that's them. And they won. They said, we're going to just let Zim go off in exile. That's Zim, in the back of an armored personnel carrier. They beat him and they shot him. And I'm glad that picture's not in color. That's why I showed, there's color ones, I'm not showing you that one. And they murdered him. And what kind of governments were created? Do you think that's all the problem? You have a military dictatorship where you brutally kill the leader and everything's gonna be fine? He was killed, but immediately people thought the US was behind it. Look at that newspaper that was sold to English speakers in Vietnam. You see it? You read the headline? Everybody believed the United States was behind it. The US was not behind it, yet they agreed. But CIA, this was really common. Oh yeah, the US overthrown. So what kind of government's going to come next? You're going to get series of dictatorships. I didn't write that down. So everyone put down dictatorship. Military dictatorships, one after the other. And the US has no choice but to support them. Because everybody believed the US put them in place. Even though the US didn't. We're stuck. Dictatorship after dictatorship, until one general took over in 67 and he would lead to the end. And check. Zim would be overthrown, another general come in, Bing would come in, eventually two would take over. Did they ever have a, oh, and every time there'd be a coup, they say, we're writing a constitution, democracy on the march, freedom and rights for everybody. 6 months later, another coup. 6 months later, another coup. It became a joke, another coup. And then, just a little bit after that, Kennedy. And here's LBJ sitting there thinking, LBJ wasn't too nuanced on this. Intelligent man, but he's not really nuanced. And he thought, you guys are handling this all wrong. You can't pull troops out when we're losing. You can't make it seem like we're winning. But more importantly, this. I'm the accidental president. Kennedy's approval rating was low, but he was personally popular. And after he was assassinated, what's going to happen? Everyone's going to look back at Kennedy. You got to understand why. The martyred leader, the great man. Oh, if Kennedy would have survived. And now Johnson's got to step into that place. So Kennedy made Vietnam important. If South Vietnam falls, who will be blamed? LBJ, destroying Kennedy's legacy. Now, they mention it in the video. Well, John Kennedy's attorney general. This is like a shocking conflict of interest. John Kennedy's attorney general was Robert Kennedy, his brother. It's kind of shocking. And then today it'd be like normal. But back then it was very shocking. There's conflict of interest now there. But back to this. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy and LBJ the spies. And Johnson sitting there going, I won in Vietnam. Robert Kennedy's going to turn around and run for president, win the Democratic nomination, and humiliate. No way I'm going to let that happen. Hey, has anything of this had to do with South Vietnam yet and the people who live there? Have you noticed something? We're not going, oh, we got to help the people of the poverty in South Vietnam. It's really impoverished. No, it's all politics. It's all about power plays. It's all about, everything but the actual people involved. That would never happen again in Iraq and Afghanistan and so many different places. Yeah. So we're going to go into the Cold War. We're going to send more advisors and we're going to win here. Those are Green Berets. That's very jaunty there, doesn't it? I should add all these specially trained Green Berets. We did have one problem. A lot of them had learned Vietnam, but most of them had learned Russian. So what do you do with them? Well, we sent them anyways and hope for the best. And we sent more and more. And this was the next great plan. Strategic camps. This is brilliant. So there were a lot of villagers all around South Vietnam. And they can't tell who is a soldier and who isn't. So the plan was this. Let's gently encourage at gunpoint all the villagers to go to one common location. And then we could surround it with fences and punji sticks and train a militia. So that's a Green Beret and villagers. So all the villagers are in the strategic hamlet, protected. And that means everybody outside in that area is a what? A Viet Cong who we can kill. Does this kind of seem, what's the first thing you think of when you think of forcing people at gunpoint into a strategic hamlet? Does anyone think concentration camp? Did this work? So you're taking people who might have been living on the same piece of land generation after generation, and you're kicking them off their land and putting them in this, and telling them then when you want to go work your land, you got to walk 3 or 4 miles and be back before dark. Stupid idea. That's what Cuba did during the Cuban Revolution. That would lead to the Spanish-American War. And we did it here. Yeah, I can't get over how dumb that is. Yeah, that was the propaganda for it. the generalized strategic Hamlet. Nice and school. Armed storage. Okay, so let's get to that. So the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, South Vietnamese Army, ARVN. That's what you have, ARVN. If anybody was alive during the Vietnam War and you watch the news, you would just say ARVN, you know what it was. Today seems kind of weird. ARVN. We got to train these guys up to fight. So these are South Vietnamese soldiers. And yes, that's actually 74, but it kind of blew me away. He's about 14. They started drafting every male. But what's happening? If you have nepotism, I told you they're already stealing money. All people who either relatives of them or gave them money became officers. What did the officers do? They would provide them money to pay their soldiers. What would they do? Pocketed them, and nobody trusted their officers. If armies don't trust their officers, they won't fight. One thing the United States has, and other countries, you can tell countries, we stole from the French and the British and other countries. Russia didn't have this when they invaded Ukraine, but they kind of do now. If the men trust the officers, you have things like a military academy, well-trained officers, they'll fight now. They trust their officers. They didn't trust their officers, they didn't fight. Well, they're brave, they shouldn't fight. So we're going to jump. So they had a great plan. They're going to use all these armored personnel carriers, helicopters, all these weapons from the United States. And they were going to attack. It's a very famous battle called the Battle of Abba. And this is 1963. And it's going to show that the ARVN army is ready to fight. And here's the basic idea. They knew there was a Viet Cong regiment right here. And they were going to surround them and kill. I emphasize that. You got to kill them. So what was the plan? Well, the plan is going to be really simple. What they thought they would do is, they knew they were here. They would put armored personnel carriers and armor here, and then drop helicopters in the middle. Not drop helicopters. Drop men from helicopters. No, we're just going to drop helicopters on them. One by one, helicopter after helicopter. And then those men would surprise them and push them into these blocking forces where they would be slaughtered. Got the plan? They called it spear and net. Spear and net. Now, all of us have been tiger hunting, right? And you remember when you go tiger hunting? By the way, I don't like tiger hunting. I like tigers. I don't want to catch one in the wild. But what's spear and hunt? Let's say there's a big bush and there's a bunch of tigers. What you do is, this is what the British would do in colonial India. They would send a bunch of people, essentially kind of like servants, with spears into the jungle. And they would push the tiger out, right? To where the European hunter in the cupola, all protected, could pick them off. That's a horror, right? Spear and net. Spear and net. You're pushing them into a net. What's the net? A guy with a gun. So those are the helicopters. They dropped them in. Everything went wrong. Everything went wrong. The Viet Cong stood and fought. The blocking forces weren't strong enough. They could filter through them. They mowed down the men getting out of the helicopters. They destroyed a number of armored personnel carriers. These are helicopters destroyed. These are the heavy machine guns that they were using on the armored personnel carriers where men would be hauled. And the men didn't know how to fire the things. And these armored personnel carriers had aluminum armor. Now they have aluminum armor, so they're light. Do you know what aluminum does at high temperature? It melts but it's a lower temperature than steel. And so shells would hit it or a mine would explode. And the armor, they didn't realize this till this battle, melted really fast. The thing melts, so it explodes into this that's holding 8 men. Cools as it flies, and what happens? Just horrific shrapnel. Just riddles them with horrible wounds. Horrible wounds. So the point is it failed miserably. And by 64, things are going really bad. But Lyndon Johnson had his own plan. Johnson was gonna out Kennedy and promote this massive program, everybody write down the Great Society. The Great Society was Johnson's baby. It's gonna be civil rights, college aid. He wanted free college tuition. That did not happen. Healthcare for the elderly and working people, and eventually healthcare for everybody. Healthcare paid for, health insurance paid for by, all together. And it would be out of this that you would get public television and NPR, which are now defunded, but just recently, but that all started with LBJ. And there he is announcing it, there he is on a horse. But he needed this policy proposed. But the big one was civil rights. The Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Voting Rights Act of 65. These were the most important laws. And Johnson's sitting there going, I can't get this passed if we lose in Vietnam. And then the Kennedys will come back and get me. That's literally the way they looked at it, the Kennedy clan. It is so weird that Robert Kennedy, and then now his son is the head of Health and Human Services. And it's just so weird to me, this whole thing. And like totally opposite of his father, politically. It's just the whole thing is just so weird. Life is weird, isn't it? So, 64, he's got to win on his own merit, and he's got to look tough on crime. That's the crime.
Yep.
Communism. Okay, tough on crime was the 90s. And who's running against him? A conservative insurgency in the Republican Party nominated Barry Goldwater. Johnson ran with Hubert Horatio Humphrey, HQ. I love that one. But Barry Goldwater, and Barry Goldwater was, okay, what was Barry Goldwater's popularity? It wasn't what he wanted to be. He said, we're at war in Vietnam. We're going to win that war. And if we have to use nuclear weapons, we're going to. And if the Kremlin resists, we'll drop an atomic bomb into the bathroom of the Kremlin. We will show them. So he's openly threatening nuclear war. He talked about turning North Vietnam, which was helping the Viet Cong, into a glowing parking lot. So Johnson is sitting there going, all I got to do is not be a lunatic, and I can be elected president. And there's one more thing. Goldwater's supporters did not like that. What did they like about Goldwater? This was a conservative insurgency in 1964. Yeah.
Then I guess that he's like incredibly tough on communism.
Even though they like that, but it's even more, it's something else. Yeah.
CNN and platforms.
A little bit of that, it's unknown, but it's even more, those are very good guesses, and it's part of it. But it's something even bigger, yeah. Yeah, he went against civil rights. He went against the civil rights stuff. He said he's opposed to equal rights. And Republicans, who are always kind of, both the Democrats and Republicans were all over the place. This is the beginning of the Republican Party being the party against equal rights. Sorry, right here. Why? They could get all those Southern Democrats started. And what happened? Took about 20 years, but yeah. And now the Republican Party is very much a Southern party. But back to this. So what does Johnson have to do? I want equal rights. I want help for college tuition. I want, we're going to end the 20% poverty rate. And blah, 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 blah. And so, remember the Tonkin Gulf? Okay, I don't need to really explain this, but that's what happened during that. Remember this from the video? Everybody remember the Tonkin Gulf? So, 1964. Who were we aiding? I told you that day, they didn't mention the video. Who was raiding the Tonkin Gulf right up here? Who was raiding North Vietnamese bases? Yeah, South Vietnamese commandos, South Vietnamese Rangers. And the US ships were supporting them. Remember there was a first attack on the Maddox that was real? You remember that? And then they sent the Maddox and the Turner Joy back. That's the Maddox. 2 days later, oh, that's the actual torpedo boats. They really did attack. And that's the second attack, the Maddox and the Turner Joy. And remember, they all said they're being attacked. Do you remember what the admiral said? Oh yeah, I'm certain. I think. Was there an attack that second time? No. But Johnson didn't know the doubts and he ordered airstrikes. He ordered airstrikes. And that's a map from Time magazine showing it. And then that led to the Tonkin-Gok resolution. And that's what we have to get down. The Tonkin-Gok resolution would be a blank check to go to war. Basically what it said is the president can act any way the president wants in Southeast Asia to defend our interests. A blank check. Now, then did Johnson bomb any more in the north? Did he send troops right away? No. Do you see the restraint? Johnson could say, I'm tough on communism, but I'm not reckless. We did one attack in response to a blatant attack on our ships. People now was a lie. And then I held back. Restraint, tough on communism, while that other guy's talking about blowing up the world. Who would you vote for? Who represents peace? More importantly, television. So I showed this to my AP US history classes last year. If you were not in my class, you will see one of the greatest television ads ever made. It only showed one time on the NBC Sunday night or Sunday movie of the week. Now we don't have that anymore. Think about 1964. If you missed a movie in the theater, would you ever see it again? Maybe they came back through. And so networks would show the movies with television, with commercials. And that was a big deal. So we're talking really high ratings. Once you had VCRs and then DVDs and then what we have streaming now, that all ended. Yeah.
When I did my interview last year, my interviewee brought up the Daisy ad.
And the thing was, they only showed it one time, but every television network talked about it. It's such a good ad. Now, when I mean good, I'm not talking moral or just. I mean effective. Do you want to see it?
Yes.
It's kind of awesome. If you haven't seen it, you'll be, what? And if you have seen it, you just want to see it again. You don't get to watch it. Oh, there we go. Oh, it's kind of quiet. So the greatest television ad in the history of TV. There are a couple political ads I think are really good in all ways. This is just effective. Isn't that cute? Solid, huh? So this is Johnson. How about this? Can you argue with that ad? That is awesome. And so, okay, I purposely found a map that was not blue and red. I hate that stuff. So green are the Democrats. Look at the victory for Johnson. The largest popular vote victory in American history. And one of the largest electoral votes victories in American history. Johnson won an unprecedented victory. By the way, this is the time Johnson should have said, we won in Vietnam while it's strong. That would have been the perfect time because he just got 61% of the vote. But do you see one thing? Do you see where Goldwater got his votes? Okay, he was from Arizona. These states always voted Democratic because there was no Republican Party in the South after Reconstruction. No Republican. Look at this. So a big political shift is coming. And on that happy note, tomorrow, what are you doing? I hope so. Yeah, trenches, good shoes. You know what we should do? River, bring wax.
Okay.
And let's wax the floors and then we'll do wall sit with everybody in socks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Huh? Did it go good?
Yeah. This is very different, and so I want to get both of their points of view in front of, and it was really interesting, but I found out, so like, I found out so much stuff about my nana, which like I knew aspects of it, but I was talking to her about,
Let's save it for the interview.
it's so funny, it's so funny.
Yeah, save it for you, save it for the presentation. I really want to know. But that's, hey,
It's really fun.
if, so we had a great interview here. If you get a good, remember to get the interviews. I hope you learned something. I think this is really fun. This is cool. Oh, I almost forgot, because we started going out joking around, but I shouldn't joke around. This is the anniversary of September 11th. And we did not pick September 11th this semester. It would be probably a good thing to do it next semester. We did last year.
Isn't it one of the, is it one of the things we just do? I thought we
No.
did on it.
Do you want to do September 11th? Did anyone else think that? Most of you don't have any idea what happened.
It's a,
Sorry, you don't. You have a little bit of an idea, but you don't. But maybe we should do it next semester, but we do the same interview with 9/11.
the documentary was really good too, like the blinking bat. I still talk about this.
That'd be good. After you're done. But the same thing, we can find out things about what your parents knew. So I make you good. Your parents were, and you find out what they knew and didn't know, and what they thought. People are living their lives. Living your life is tough. So you miss stuff. I'm just sorry, you miss stuff. Out there, we don't, right? Yes, Mom.
My mom, was like, they didn't know, like, they didn't know. It was really,
Well,
Let the dog taste like, you 2 days.
Watching the documentary, it's crazy hours. Isabella's gonna make me come.
Oh, that's on.
I don't want to know, it's like, he doesn't going to, so Isabella.
Tell us the thing.
I will. I'll read it.
Perfect.
No, the documentary, yeah, we great. Oh,
I really want to hear it. That would be awesome. Oh,
But
yeah.
I don't, I'm not in contact with my mom, but we try to wait. Outside of the last minute, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Not a lot better than it.
And do one more thing, if you can't get it, maybe down the road, you can talk to them, we can take a date, or we keep it talk. Because then now you know what to ask.
Yeah.
So we just.
It'll be.
It's sad little thing happened. Well, I get it. Yeah. That would be really cool, I like that. Hey, you got that, well done. No, but.
Everybody so low.
Find it out. Just really that. Not playing. How long was this gap?
Someone deserves to like die in their house. But. Three people with internet access. Minnesota just like live on mountains. No cluster. What's it called?
I was missing more coconuts, like how that much.
So that's from consent that I should get.
I should have paid for, let's do another quiz. I'm kidding. Not too much. I need someone to help me. Thank you. Hand those out to everybody. We got two things to give you. First off, I promised I'd give you the review list for the test. Aren't I nice? If you don't want the review, let's let me know. If no one wants it? You don't need it. You smile and nod. You're gonna listen more.
Yeah, Tobin, you cannot have all of that.
That was a great.
Don't do that.
Wait, but you can hand them out.
I'll leave it like costume.
No.
Oh, I forgot. These are our.
I missed everybody. Quick, pass them around. Send them that way. Let's go. Quick, chop, chop. We're burning daylight. Someone couldn't handle the passing out situation.
Yeah.
You do complex. Go like this. Go like this. Lift it up. The paper cut's gonna go right in between those fingers right there. Next one, right here.
Tiny blind for me, tiny blind for me.
You should be so.
Oh, I need to take the quiz from yesterday. I was.
I graded you anyways. You do great. Yeah, I mean.
I should have studied.
So this is a review list for the test. We gotta sign into the college boards. I just gave you, you guys do that. Oh, you don't need a half sheet for this because I don't need the extra copies. Just get a pencil and leave my presence. I'm looking at Thursday or Friday of next week.
No idea.
I got one of the good ones. Some of them's pretty bad.
The test comes when the test comes. All right. So just put your name on top. Don't forget that. Then just space. Sound good? Awesome. It's easy if you know everything. Okay. All right, two things really quick. First off, raise your hand if you've already signed into the College Board website. Okay, if you have not, or most of you have, that's good. This is directions how to do that. You have to register into the College Board, even if you're not taking the AP exam. And that is for the counselors, and the counselors get this list of all the people in the class and who is registered, and it makes it significantly easier on them to get the test. And there's a lot of tests they gotta do, so we're gonna help them out. So you have to do this in the next week. If you're already registered in there, I will give you a minute or so if you wanna get on your phone real quick and register. If you haven't registered, do it on your own time. You need a password or code. It could be anywhere on this sheet of paper. I don't know where it is. Let's see if you can figure it out. It's Quest, so to speak. So quick, if you haven't registered, and this gives you the directions how to register. If you've registered and don't really need this, on your way out when we leave, we'll just drop it on this file and I could use it. Or at least recycle. So you have to register. We have to get done the next week because you have to pay for the AP exam at the end of next month. But I think it's only gonna be like $40 or $50 for the test. Normally it's $100.
Are they open yet? I thought it was.
No, not for nothing.
I thought it opened September 10th.
But it goes through our counseling office. So actually, it has to open up through them. So whenever they're ready to start taking. So they might go a day later or a day. But if you pass the AP US History exam, you get 10 credits from Montana State University. You get 8 credits from, 10 credits from Montana State, 8 credits from UM, so that's slightly different scale. 6 credits from Carroll. Passing. What is that, 3?
Just the 3.
98% of the schools take 3 as passing, around 5. Some of the ones won't, because they, well, we also, they want the money. Almost everyone passed last year with, you're right.
You'll get a share for 3.
All right, next, everyone take out in that packet. Let's go to the video. Let's take a on that. I have good news and bad news. You want to have the good news?
Yes.
The good news is, I'll listen with the bad news. I'm gonna be gone tomorrow. But I know, I feel your pain. I'm with me all the time, so it's really not that big of a deal, but you are deprived. here's the deal. My plan is, I decided, I was looking at the video and the questions I had for it, and I think I'm gonna show the second video. So I'll give you a worksheet, you'll watch it, you have to fill that out, and the sub will collect it at the end of the period. We'll be about 90% done. Has everyone got that? That's what we're doing, but there might be a shortage of subs. So my sub might have to take 3 or 4 classes at the same time, meaning what room will you guys meet in? And I envy you. That's the good news. You might be able to sit for 50 minutes in those wonderful cafeteria seats. And if that happens, I'm gonna have to give you a readings. If I have it for the sub, it'll be a reading assignment, and if you're gonna be gone, I will post it on Teams. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I gotta be ready. All right, is everyone happy with that? You have to deal with it, because that's what we're gonna do. I hope you're not gonna be in the cafeteria, but
Do the party in the cafeteria instead.
we could. I hate that. Not only it's a pain, but also those seats are terrible. I remember they used to do the AP exams in the cafeteria. And students would walk out after 4 hours being literally like this. It hurt so bad. I think they should do it again. I would just for the brushing.
Yeah.
All right, let's take out the worksheet. We were right on, you got number 1, I know they covered that a lot, and I told stories. Are we right? We got past the population, right? How many people lived in the colonies? And, we got rivers, we got forests. What can a squirrel do? Tree to tree, that's, okay, we can't prove it, but let's do the story. Tree to tree. And never touch the ground. I've done it a couple times. It takes a while, but it's fun. Yes, I have squirrel-like whippings. That's the election of 1964. Let's get going. Do I have it? Come up. Give me a second.
Can I get the packet from yesterday?
No.
What's the one with the